You hand out chocolate every time, I'll come. Now, I was kind of looking for the caramel-filled ones. You know, just say it. No? I'm going to show my age a little bit here this morning, although this group most of you probably are familiar with it. How many of you remember the old V8 juice? You remember the old commercial? I should have had, yeah, they're in the middle of drinking the Coke or some sort of soda pop or doing something. And then, I should have had a V8. Now, for some of you younger ones, that probably doesn't make any sense whatsoever. You know it? You know that one. Okay, well, some of the younger ones, sure my sons don't have a clue what I'm talking about. How about Homer Simpson? Homer Simpson, whenever he does something really dumb, that's what we're talking about. I had one of those moments this last week. My son David came up, I warned him I was going to do this, so he's been warned. But he comes up to me and says, Dad, how can I get rich? And I'm like, this is a scripture passage, and this is what my son's asking me in the same word. There's got to be something going on here. And so I'm thinking about all of this. I got back to what John Wesley had to say about it. And John Wesley talked a good deal about money and wealth. And basically for 40 or more than 40 years, John Wesley's advice on money was this: earn all you can, save all you can, give all you can. That was his advice for 40-some years. And I'm thinking, well, my son probably doesn't want to hear John Wesley speeches. He probably wants something a little bit more modern. So I got to thinking about the Dave Ramsey class that my wife and I took just about 3-4 years ago. They've offered the class here. We've got the materials upstairs. Dave Ramsey on radio does a lot of, he's a finance guru that helps people. Anybody want to teach a class? We got the materials. It's up there. But Dave Ramsey basically follows John Wesley's preaching in many, many ways. Basically, Dave Ramsey says, earn. If you want to make money, you got to work. Go to work. Earn money. Make sure that what you spend is less than you're making. Do a budget. Have a budget. So earn all you can, save all you can. And then he varies off into some financial documents like insurance and investing, which John Wesley didn't deal with too much. But then the end of it is give. It's very, very Wesley in his approach. Dave Ramsey is very, very Wesley. And so I think, well, this is something that I can share with David. So I start talking to him about, you need to work. You need to make money. You need to have a budget and calculate how much money you're bringing in, how much money you're spending, and make sure that you're spending less than you're making. Save. Save what you can. As you get older, look into investing and insurance, and then give. And then give. But be consistent about it. You can't just do it today and then forget about it for 2 months and then try to do it again, pick it up again. And you've got to be consistent. Day in, day out, do this on down the road. Long speech. And he says, Dad, you don't understand the question. You're like, what's the question? He's like, how do I get rich quick? How about the lottery? I'm like, oh. I should have had a meeting. Oh. But John Wesley had very similar moments. Preaching, earn all you can, save all you can, give all you can. For his whole life, he's been preaching this. And initially, John Wesley went out and he spoke to the poor. He was in prisons. He was at coal mines. He was open air preaching to whoever would come. And he was preaching this: earn all you can, save all you can, give all you can to these people. And 40-some years later, as he got into his older life, he lamented. He really lamented that Methodists were really good at 2/3 of it. The people had listened. A lot of the people he was now preaching to in later life had earned a lot of money. And they had saved a lot of money. But they really weren't very good at giving. And John Wesley was big on giving. He earned huge sums of money during his life and gave the majority of it away. That was John Wesley. John Wesley was a bit puritanical. We know that why we have grape juice for communion. John Wesley was not big on alcohol. He railed against alcohol. He railed against tobacco. He railed against gambling. So far, probably the majority of us are nodding our heads, okay, yeah, we can agree. How about this? John Wesley did not approve of ribbons. Of ribbons. Gaudy shows of apparel. He didn't appreciate that. He didn't like it. He did not appreciate, what was the other one? I've got them written down here. Oh, let's see. Jewelry. Jewelry. He didn't appreciate gaudy shows of jewelry. Should keep it simple. How about this one? With the Opera House just down the street here. The theater. The theater. John Wesley had some Puritan roots in it, okay? And they showed on occasion. And I'm afraid maybe I have a little bit too. Maybe not puritanical roots, but I certainly have my prejudices. And sometimes they show. And things bother me. This scripture passage today bothers me. Because Jesus, who is always so giving, so willing to pour himself out for others, always there, always giving, always caring, a young man comes to him and says, help me, and he says, no. Why? This bothers me. Why would Jesus turn this man down flat? A little background, a little history. Most likely what has happened is dad has passed away. The father has passed away, leaving a couple of sons. According to Jewish tradition and custom at the time, the older son inherited double portion and control. You see the problem? Older brother didn't want to share. He had control. Why bother? And so the younger brother is going to Jesus and saying, hey, tell my brother to share with me. The young man is doing nothing inappropriate, nothing wrong. We have instances in the Old Testament. People went to Moses to decide these kinds of decisions way back in the Old Testament. So the young man is doing nothing inappropriate. And yet Jesus says, man, who am I to judge between you? Who made me your judge? This makes me a little uncomfortable. Why wouldn't Jesus want to why wouldn't he want to help this man? Well, the best answer I can come up with is perhaps what Jesus was sensing was a little bit of greed and selfishness behind the question. Perhaps the young man was already wealthy, had plenty, and he just wanted more. And Jesus didn't want to play that game. He didn't want to become a part of that, and he didn't want to become part of just helping this man just get more wealth. That's not the point. That's not why Jesus came. And so Jesus tells him a story. He says, beware of all greed. Beware of all kinds of greed, because our lives really not judged by how much money we accumulate. Even if we're wealthy, that's not how we judge our lives. And then he told him the story. A certain wealthy man. Notice the man is wealthy, which leads me to believe that the young man probably had money. This is so that the young man could understand. A certain wealthy man was truly blessed. He had all sorts of money already, and he planted his crops, and God blessed him, and God blessed the crops, and the crops came in, and it was a bounteous, it was spectacular harvest. And so what did the man do? Did he stop to pause and give thanks to God? Nope. Did he stop and say, with all this excess, with all of this grain, I could give to the poor and I could alleviate a lot of the hunger and starvation that's going on around me? Nope. He didn't give a thought to God or anyone else. The only person he had on his mind was himself. So what did he do? He went into a tizzy. What am I going to do? I've got more than I can store. My barns and my granaries, nothing. I can't store all of this. It won't all fit in there. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I know. I'll tear everything down. I'll restore everything I got, and I'll build up bigger, and I'll put it all in there. Every grain, all of it's going to go in these granaries, and I'll have enough. And I'll live on easy street. I won't have to work. I won't have to worry. Everything will be fine. Eat, drink, and be merry. And then God speaks. Sometimes we don't like it when God speaks. And God's got some harsh words. He says, "You fool!" Kind of harsh words for God, don't you think? But it's reminiscent of Psalm 14:1. It's reminiscent of Psalm 14:1. A fool is the one who says God doesn't exist. And this man would probably argue, I believe in God, I know God exists. But the point is, he's not living life as if God does. He's not living as if God exists. He's living as if God doesn't exist. And so God comes in and says, "You fool. Tonight your life will be taken from you. Now, who's going to inherit? Who's going to get all of that you've worked so hard to accumulate through your whole life? Who's going to get it?" Such is the case for anyone who doesn't put their treasure with God. I very nearly did not preach this sermon. This is a hard scripture passage for me because it brings out my prejudices and my doubts. Sometimes preparing sermons, God's voice is just like it's in my ear. It's loud and it's clear, and I'm like, "Yes, God, let's go for it." Last week was one of those. Sometimes God's voice is kind of silent, and I have to really work at it. And then sometimes God's voice comes, and I'm like, "God, I'd really rather not. Can we do something else?" And then your son hits you with a question and says, "No, this is what I want you to talk about. You need to face this issue yourself." So let me explain. I grew up in southwest Nebraska. Many of you would probably say in the middle of nowhere. Out there, they like to say in the middle of everywhere. But that's where I grew up. And I don't want to say we were poor, because that's not really how we viewed ourselves. We just didn't have much. We just didn't have much. But it was okay. I mean, one wonderful thing about living on a farm, you eat well. And when the cow was slaughtered, you ate really well. I thought everybody grew up on T-bone steaks and ribeyes and roast beef. I mean, that was how we lived. But we didn't have a lot of money. Never did. And it was fine. I went to school, and yeah, there were some kids that had a little bit more. There were some kids who had a little bit less. But generally, by and large, we were all kind of in this same middle group, and nobody really flaunted. It was okay. Even when I went to the University of Nebraska, it was okay. It was, yeah, the parameters got a little wider. Some people really had a lot more, but they were a minority. You could kind of ignore them. And there were some who were poor, and I served in the soup kitchen, so I'm doing my part, and I'm helping out. And most of us are here in this middle group. It wasn't until I went to seminary. It wasn't until I went to SMU, Southern Methodist University in Dallas, Texas. Perkins School of Theology in Highland Park, where I was truly confronted for the first time with true wealth. I mean, there were undergrads driving around cars that cost more than my parents' house. It was an extreme amount of money that these people were showing. And I had never been around this before in my life. I was uncomfortable. It really made me uncomfortable. I was driving around, I was a graduate student driving around a little Pontiac 6000 with no air conditioning. I was struggling, talk about budgets. I was struggling to see if I bought this piece of pizza today, would I have enough for a piece of pizza next week? And here these kids were younger than me, undergrads driving these cars and going to all sorts of things and activities, and I was uncomfortable. And it probably showed. I was 22. I knew everything, You've been 22 once. Maybe you're not there yet. And I probably shared my thoughts a time or two rather vocally. Until a certain professor sat me down, a professor that I admired, that I respected, sat me down and showed me some other scripture passages about whether nations will be judged. And this man had traveled widely, lived overseas for a number of years. And he said, Dirk, there are countries in this world. There are countries in this world that look at these passages and say, it's not the individuals that will be judged, it'll be the country. And we live in the richest country in the world. They believe we're going to be judged. And my answer was, that's not fair. That's not right. I'm not rich. And he just left it at that and left me to think about it. And this is a hard one for me. Because yes, I was driving around a Pontiac 6000 with no air conditioning, but I had a car. The majority of the people in this world, they can't afford a car. Here I was a student and I had one. Who am I to be complaining? Oh, there's still a part of me that when I come to scripture passages like the one today, I want to stand up here and kind of stick it to the rich people a little bit. There's a part of me that, because I was so uncomfortable in graduate school. And Jesus does have some strong words for people with money. It's hard. When you have more wealth and more money, more concerns and more cares, it's easy for this to come in and choke out the gospel. It's easy for you to put God on the back seat, on the back burner, and eventually off the stove altogether. But what I see Jesus really saying in this passage, that's true of all of us. It's true of all of us. It was true of me. I was letting other people's wealth put God on the back burner and off the stove. I was allowing that to affect me. And so this is hard. Because this is my prejudice, my doubts, my fears. And maybe a little bit of my selfishness and greed too that comes out whenever I read a passage like this. And I don't think I'm alone. But what Jesus is saying, to boil this down, whether we are rich or poor, whether we have lots of money, lots of property, or nothing at all, we have to put God at the center. On that front burner, and pay attention to God all the time. Only then can we truly be free. Because when we start putting God back on the back burner and putting God off the stove altogether, our things start to control us. No matter what they are. They could be simple little things, but they begin to control us. We become the practical atheist. Because we're living our lives as if God does not exist. It's like the man out in California. The wildfires came through, burned up his house, and burned up everything that he had. And the TV crews go out to interview him, and they say, "You must be totally devastated." And he said, "No. Actually, I feel liberated. I'm free. That house and all those possessions were weighing me down. I just felt tied, and now I'm free." It's God that sets us free. And when we can remember, no matter who we are, to put God first and foremost, front and center on that front burner, only then can we truly be free. And my prayer for each and every one of us is that we'll be free. Free to love God. And free to love one another. And the God who forces me to face my own prejudices and my own doubts will help me overcome and set me free from those as well. God bless. God loves you. And I love you too. Amen.